Anyway, they had Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and they introduced Pat McAfee. McAfee was back on commentary, so a three-man booth for this one. But they led with the Women's Royal Rumble match. And Brian, I think if anybody doubts comments you made in the last several days on one of these programs about basically there not being a lot of depth in anybody's women's division, did this prove it? Did this prove it?
It proved that there are a lot of women who, it seems, are taught how to do moves or move around, but aren't really taught how to work. And there are a few women who really stand out. That you say, geez, that person's a star. And then there's a lot of women just running through moves. And not everyone works at the same speed or could do what's in their mind, and it ends up being a sloppy mess at times. The crowd wasn't really into it, but to be fair, they weren't really into much throughout the whole show. It was a weird stadium crowd.
But I mean, with you mentioned they can do moves. A lot of it is adapting their cheerleading routines to throw somebody down on the mat instead of have them land back on their feet. And otherwise, that's the wrestling. And
it's just so much like running, like getting in just right away, running and doing the move that you rehearsed.
And herky jerkiness.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
So I'll give the participants in order from 1 on down. Natalia, Naomi, she's back, didn't bring the Flying Burrito Brothers. Bailey, Candy LaRue, Jordan Grace from TNA with the belt. Remember, they did that with Mickie James last time, so they've said, okay, TNA is no threat, so we'll do something with it.
Well, hold on, let's talk about that real quick. I actually thought she looked pretty good in there, all things considered, but WWE working with TNA, it's a very interesting time. Again, new ownership, things happening with New Japan, Tony working with different promotions throughout the years, calls it the Forbidden Door. It's an interesting time for WWE and their new management to be working with other companies.
But they did this last year with Mickie James, remember? And then they ended up with Nick Aldis, who they're married, he and Mickie, coming into the company.
Mickey's now is she working with TNA? Is that where she's working? Or
no, I said Aldis came in. Aldis. Well, no, Mickie was in TNA last year and appeared in the Rumble.
Or 2 years ago, maybe.
Well, I thought it was last year.
Was it last year?
I don't know. Point is, there's precedent. And I mean, it's, did a lot of people there know who the fuck TNA is, much less Jordan Grace? I think it's a bigger deal to the smart fans than it is to the general population. And again, they don't see them as any threats. So if there's some kind of talent exchange on a limited basis, I don't see them going whole hog with it, because who has TNA got that the WWE has an embarrassment of riches right now on the roster, and why would they want to bring somebody in part-time and focus on them? Yeah.
I remember in 95 or whatever it was, Dick Murdoch showed up in the Royal Rumble. There was always...
Well, no, Murdoch was working there. Murdoch worked there for close to a year and didn't do anything. They brought him to, a couple of times, they brought him to TV. See, that was what saved me right before I went up there full time. I was tired out from Knoxville and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and I'd go up there, and at that point in time, I wasn't doing a ton on camera, but basically it was a chance to talk to Dick Murdoch and fucking hear bullshit, funny old stories. Was the most entertaining thing about the TVs during 95-ish.
He was at every TV?
There. Yeah, he worked there for a long time. They couldn't figure out anything to do with him, but everybody liked having him around, and I think Vince just said, if it's Murdoch, fucking pay him, we'll do something eventually. And then they didn't. But he was there for quite a while. Anyway, so after old Jordan Grace was Indy Hartwell, Oscar, Ivy Nile, Katana Chance, Bianca Belair, she woke him up a little bit.
Yeah, she got a pop. See, that's part of the problem. A lot of these women got introduced and their music was really loud and no one moved and no one made a sound. And when the music went down, it was silence.
Silencio.
It's a weird reaction. It's hard to not focus on that when everyone starts getting that weird reaction. But then, like you said, the stars like Bianca got a big pop.
And then we went Carrie Sane, Tegan Knox, Caden Carter, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Zia Lee, Zelina Vega, Model Girl from fucking Dupree Models. She fucked up her first spot. And just fucking, they all fell in a heap. Nia Jax, people kind of went, oh, instead of yay, it's like, oh, this could go either way. She moved like a glacier.
Hey, at least she's presented like a star. You could at least give her that. They present her like she's, better than she is, but they present her like a star and the fans at least act like it.
So really, we've got Nia, we've got Bianca, and number 20 in was Shotzi. And basically we've had Nia and Bianca that people take as stars. And then here came Becky Lynch. And again, they like her. So now we got 3 out of 21. And then Alba Fire and Shayna Baszler and Valerie Halla. And then one of the biggest responses so far was when R-Truth came to the ring. He ran past old Valhalla and was going, where's all the guys? He was trying to enter the women's rumble thinking that was his number for the men's rumble or whatever the fuck. And he looks around and Nia shit cans him and then Pierce kicks him out of ringside. And then Val rolls in and Nia shit cans her too. So,
and then she runs after the truth.
Yeah. She can't handle the truth.
I'm sorry to say it. I'm very sorry to say it. I am entertained by the R-Truth stuff. He's so committed to the stupidity. I'm entertained by it. This guy's a former NWA champion. I'm so entertained by just how committed he is to this. It was the highlight of the match so far.
And unfortunately, you are correct. And then Mia Yim. And then Zoe Stark. And then Roxanne Perez. And then we're up to number 28. Jane Cargill makes her debut.
Jade.
Or Jade.
Although Michael Cole sounded I called her Jane.
Well, they may change it slightly, just so they can trademark the thing.
Nah, Jade's a star.
She goes into the ring, has a face-off with Nia Jax, and Fireman's carries her and drops her kind of awkwardly, but gets a big pop. And then picked her up for a slam and dumped her over the top rope and got a huge pop. And then she fought with Becky. And then she ran into the post and they were all selling, so out could come Tiffany Stratton. Whoever the fuck that may be. She looked like 7 other girls in the match. And then...
That's my favorite spot. Everyone lay in a corner.
Yeah, just lay in a corner. Here comes a girl. And then number 30 was Liv Morgan. We got to put up with this again. She came down all minute. And we were an hour and 10 minutes into the pay-per-view, and there were still like 8 or 10 girls in the match. And finally it got down to Bayley and Liv and Miss Cargill. And that's where I was like, what the fuck? Poor Jade. Who thought that it was going to be a good idea for her to try to work with Liv Morgan because she's green, but she looks like a star and Liv is rotten. And it looked like 2 women fighting in a zero-gravity simulator at NASA. And then they got stuck in the ropes. Cargill and Morgan get stuck in the ropes while Morgan's trying to give her finish and Cargill catches her. And Bayley runs at him and had to backdrop herself over both of them to the apron because nothing else happened. Bayley just ran and vaulted over him. And then...
Charlie Cook.
There you go. It wasn't a split-legged leap, though. And then Cargill dumps Liv over the top to the apron barely, and then Bayley and Liv pull Jane over to the apron. And they have a sloppy struggle. And now at this point, Miss Cargill is holding her top up with one hand because it's almost coming out. And Liv knocked her to the floor. And then Bayley pushes Liv to the floor. So Bayley won. Miss Cargill was in for too long. And what the fuck does anybody see in Liv Morgan? Is my thought. After an hour and 20 minutes, we determined a winner in the first match.
Well, Liv Morgan's pretty. She's got weed. Drives fast.
That's dope.
That's dope. Badass. I was really happy to see Jade here. I was hoping that she would be in this because I see some of the other women who get used on TV and she's not that bad. So there's no reason for her to still be hidden and away.
But it started out great and they were putting her over and then it was too long with girls that can't.
Is this, if you're not, and again, wrestling today is so much different than it used to be in just in terms of experience and how often you do things, but if you're relatively inexperienced, even though Jade's been on TV and working for AEW for several years, relatively inexperienced, is it hard to be in a situation like a Battle Royal or a Royal Rumble where there's people everywhere, you don't know what to, not that you don't know what to do, but there's a lot to be done.
Yes, it's crowded, and you can't call all of that. A lot of times somebody will go to, guy or girl, would go to somebody and say, okay, let's do our spot. But in the meantime, they're having to keep occupied while they're setting up their spot that they prearranged. And that's where you get a lot of this wild swinging or grabbing and whispering or what. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But yeah, Cargill was the same as Mark Marrow in WCW. In AEW, they taught her to go out and have 7-minute matches with girls that aren't really good. Sometimes they didn't last that long. And it was all about putting her over as unbeatable. That's all they did with Mark Marrow was teach him how to be Johnny B. Bad, have the 8-minute match and work the gimmick. And they have to be completely. It's worse than starting from scratch because you've learned bad habits. And obviously, Marrow never recovered, but hopefully Jane will.
And now with Bayley, they have the story, will she challenge her fellow Damage Control friend Io Sky? Or will she challenge Rhea Ripley?
Boy, she better keep Rhea Ripley's name out of her fucking mouth.
Well, Bayley's good.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, that makes natural sense for Bayley. That's the other girls have been conspiring somewhat against her or clicking up with each other in her group, and that makes sense with that. But I don't want to see Bayley against Rhea Ripley because it stretches credulity that she could give Rhea any kind of contest, doesn't it? Boy, they need Charlotte back sooner than later. That's going to be 9 more months or whatever. Anyway, can we move on?
Yes.